and Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. It is 5:05 p.m. Please, will you please call roll?
Chair Williams.
Here.
Vice Chair Pagoda. Here. Committee Member Noel Carney Campbell.
Here.
Committee Member Lee. Committee Member Napper.
Here.
Committee Member Noda Shen. Here. Committee Member Tran.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Okay, at this time, please rise if you are able for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I was want to say anything. Before we get started, I'll ask Tracy to provide additional information on how to participate in today's meeting.
Chair, to participate in today's meeting, members of our audience who wish to speak may submit a request to speak card located at the back table. For those who wish to participate virtually, visit zoom.us using any browser or Zoom or the Zoom app on smartphones or tablets and enter meeting ID 16137555563 and passcode 990569. In lieu of using a computer, smartphone, or tablet, you may also dial in by calling 669-444-9171 and entering the same meeting ID. The meeting ID and passcode, along with additional instructions, a tutorial, and helpful tips on using Zoom are also available on our website at cityofirvine.org/DEI committee under how to watch a live meeting. Those who wish to provide comments via Zoom are asked to enter the speaker queue by raising their hand electronically. I will call your name and allow you to unmute your microphone at the appropriate time. Those dialing in by telephone will be identified by the last 3 digits of their telephone number. We ask that you please state your name for the record. The time limit per speaker for agendized and non-agendized items are noted in the posted agenda and shall be established based on the number of requests to speak submitted before the first speaker is called. Requests to speak submitted after the first speaker is called shall receive 90 seconds. The City of Irvine also continues to offer the e-comment feature for all agenda items. Those who wish to comment on matters before the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee in lieu of providing live testimony may submit comments in writing via mail to attention Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee, 1 Civic Center Plaza, Irvine, California 92606, or by email to DEIcommittee@cityofirvine.org. All comments will be provided to the DEI committee as part of the meeting record and will be uploaded to the city's website. Any e-comments received before, during, or after discussion of these items will still be included as part of the official record. For technical assistance with Zoom before or during the meeting, please call 949-724-6078. For any other questions or assistance, please contact the city manager's office at 949-724-6246 or via email at cm@cityofirvine.org.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. I'll now turn my colleagues back to see if they have any announcements that they would like to share.
I would just like to say that Global Village was amazing. I know I wasn't able to be here at the last meeting. I guess that was total village, but I don't know what the turnout was. Close to 20,000 more, maybe.
It was 25.
25,000 of people really experiencing every culture that is represented here in Irvine, and there were no incidents that I could see. I was there most of the day, and it was beautiful to see the cultures sort of learn from each other and exchange and really represent what we have here in Irvine. Thank you to staff and thank you to all those that participated.
So our communications director, communications and engagement director, Melissa Haley, provided us like a comprehensive update on Global Village turnout and implementation at the last council meeting. So if anybody wants more information, that's a good video to read.
I have one quick announcement that I would like to share. I just wanted to bring it to the attention of the committee that we do have a resolution coming up
at the next council meeting for implementation of a women's conference in the following March that we put forward. As you guys should know by now, the GI committee, one of our areas of focus is CEDAW, which is advancement for women. And so this women's conference would be a really nice way for us to continue to advance these initiatives. So if you would like to make any comments on that item or have any questions, you're welcome to ask myself or Councilmember Frank. Okay. It says presentations. Oh, so now, wait, I doesn't say the thing about that. Speaking of Betty.
We're going to do public comments, not agenda item.
It says presentation at the top of the page.
Yeah, but we don't have the presentation.
Oh, okay.
Agenda item.
Got it. So now we will hear public comments on matters not on the DEI committee agenda. For those attending in person who wish to speak, please fill out a speaker's card and submit to Tracy. Those participating via Zoom may now raise their hand electronically to enter the speaker queue. Any member of the public may address the DEI committee on items within the DEI subject matter jurisdiction, but which are not listed on the agenda. However, no action may be taken on these matters that are not on the posted agenda. Tracy, please provide the number of requests submitted to speak on non-agendized items, both in person and in Zoom.
Thank you, Chair. There are no requests to speak.
Thank you, Tracy. Okay. Do we have any additions or deletions to the agenda this evening? We will now consider committee business item number 1, which is the minutes. Those participating via Zoom may now raise their hand electronically to enter the speaker queue. I will turn it over to Liliana to provide an update on this item.
The minutes.
It's kind of silly. Okay. Committee members, are there any questions or discussion on this agenda item? We will now consider public testimony. Tracy, are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item?
Chair, there are no requests to speak.
Okay, the recommended action for this item is to approve the minutes of the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee regular meeting held on September 25th, 2025. Ask for a motion to approve the minutes. Do you have a second?
Also,
Tracy, will you conduct a roll call vote?
Yes.
Chair?
Chair Williams.
Yes.
Vice Chair Bakota.
I wasn't there, so I don't get anything.
Committee member Carney Campbell.
Yes.
Committee member Lee. Committee member Nepper.
yes.
Committee member Noda Shen.
Yes.
Committee member Tran.
I wasn't there.
Motion passes.
No, it does not.
You're right.
Two.
It does pass. It does pass. Fast. Surely it does pass. Motion passed. I supported. Yeah, let's do the thing.
Or
Sorry.
4-2.
42. That's passed. Motion passes for.
Just minutes before. Very serious business around here. Okay. Now we will consider committee business item number 2, which is the Office of Inclusive Excellence discussion. Council member Martinez Franco is here to provide comments on this item. Welcome, council member, and thank you for joining us today.
For later.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much, members of the committee. Welcome to the committee. It's so nice to see you all. For those who haven't met me yet, my name is Martinez Franco, and I'm honored to serve on our city council. Some of you may know now that I used to be part of the committee, but being here with you really feels like coming home. When we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, it is easy to think of it as a box we check or a report we file. But that's not what it is about. DEI is about people. It
It's about making sure every person in our city from every background and walk of life feels seen, heard, and valued. It's about our workers who serve our country and now serve our community. It's about women who continue to push for equity and opportunity. It's about our low-income neighborhoods that deserve the same respect and attention as any other part of our city. And yes, race still matters. We are on one of the most culturally diverse communities in Orange County, and that is something to celebrate. But it also means that our city government has a responsibility to really understand the nuances of each culture and know how to connect and communicate with all our residents. This is why it's so important that we look at every city project, every goal, every decision through an equity lens. Because that's how we make sure no one is left behind. As you already know, on November 12, 2024, the City Council directed the creation of an office of an inclusive excellence, which hopefully we can provide a name for that. I'm happy to share that we already have identified a dedicated staff member to lead our TV efforts. This new office will work hand in hand with this community to figure out the best way to get started and make the most of the resources we already have. As your council member, I want to know I'm here to listen, advocate, and make sure your work is heard. The efforts in this committee matter tremendously, and I'll do everything I can to make sure they don't go unnoticed. With your guidance, I'd like the Office of Inclusive Excellence to begin by conducting a community evaluation survey, one that focuses on our vulnerable and disadvantaged communities. Let's find out where the gaps are, where access is limited, and where we can do better because we can do better and we will. I will thank you again for letting me here be with you tonight. I really appreciate your time and your commitment to this committee. This is like really close to my heart. PI has been in my mind since I got to this country, and I'm with care for our future with the administration going the way it's going and not respecting our differences and our diversity in this country. So we have to do something and we have to move fast. Thank you so much. And I'm happy to for a little bit. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for the meeting's intro. For your update, we appreciate you taking the time to speak to the committee. Committee members, are there any clarifying questions? Oh, are there any clarifying questions for Councilmember Martinez Franco? No questions? Everyone knows everything we need to know about the.
I just was curious because you said
You've already identified an office staff member for this. Is it someone who already works for the city? So they'd be changing their role and like, what is their experience in working with equity and inclusion efforts?
yes, that are the first two things. The next one, it's gonna be taking on those values, how much they have been working with DEI. I have not had any word of who exactly it's gonna be, but we are gonna make sure that it's someone who has really a lot of investment or having someone that has experience with DEI.
If I may share, we may want to have a presentation by myself and then some of these questions could get answered. The additional dialogue provides some background as well. Great council members will hear. Okay. Questions.
Well, on that note, I will turn it over to Liliana to provide an update on the second.
Rebecca's going to start off the presentation with a little bit of history and then I'll finish there.
So
1 second, so sorry. Gotta get it up for everyone on Zoom as well.
So what brings us here today is, again, in November of 2024, the previous city council did ask that this matter be explored. And just some background on how the, doing its thing again. Yeah.
One more time. Still?
There we go, there you go.
So how Irvine establishes policy, we are a council management form of government. You might see some other cities like San Diego or Baltimore where the mayor is the person who directs staff action. In a council manager form of government, the city council sets policy and then city manager and staff implement that direction that was set by the council. So just setting that expectation when you might see things from other cities that differ slightly in the process. And you all are an advisory board. That means that the decisions you make do not change city policy. Any decision you make would still have to go to the council for any policy updates. And just a quick background about the city of Irvine. We have over 318,000 residents since we were established in 1971, the 13th largest city in California. And this is all just from our city website about the background of Irvine, that we have established commitments to treating every living person working in our community with fairness and access to equitable services and opportunities. This is a quick snapshot of some of the services you may have seen department staff present to you all on over the last year or more. We have different sectors such as affordable housing, the For Families team and health and wellness, transportation services, different resources for the LGBTQIA plus community, disability services, et cetera. And another initiative that we currently work on is the One Irvine Workforce Program. We do have state funding from the state of California to give career building resources to high school students for summer programs and to full-time staff for year-long internships. So that's just a quick overview of some things that are currently not under the same umbrella, but happening in the city.
Thank you. As a reminder, so last year, November 12, 2024, an item was agendized by then Mayor Khan following discussion from this particular committee to form an office of DEI. The item was heard at council and it was approved, and here's the council direction from the minutes. We go through the presentation. I will take questions really quick. Council direction was to direct staff to establish the Office of Inclusive Excellence, to work with the committee to create an implementation timeline, including a study if needed that includes recommended work structure, staffing, budget resource allocation, key programs aligned to the adopted DEI resolution. Conduct community stakeholder engagement listening sessions, including DEI leaders, nonprofits, cultural organizations. As Rebecca mentioned, the name of the office to be determined. Office was described as the Office of Inclusive Excellence back in November 2024, but that's also something that if the DEI committee has any input on the office, maybe that's also something that could be considered as a recommendation from DEI as well. The office has been led, and this is also part of the memo that was shared last year as part of the item. Lead a citywide commitment to building a culture of inclusion, encompass residents, workforce, visitors to reflect the fabric of what Irvine is, empower each person to expect equity, support diversity, engage communities and organizations, and then analyze opportunities for our most vulnerable communities. As you all know, the entire DEI committee is mostly new in terms of, because of us moving over to districts, if you will. The entire committee, obviously, we have new six new members, with Taryn and the chair being a committee member from last time, so from carryover. These are just some examples of other cities. I think I've had various conversations with some committee members as to examples of other cities and what they've done. We primarily research California cities, so you know where this is coming from. There's obviously a whole host of examples of what other cities do throughout the country. So anywhere from departments establishing goals, Los Angeles works with each department to identify different types of initiatives because each department knows their items more specifically. Cultural events, that's something that San Diego does. San Diego also does training for their committee members, cultural trainings. We obviously have been involved with cultural events here. Other examples are equity audits, if you will, and department liaisons. offering housing, affordable housing, there's really a wide range of spectrum. These are just high-level examples of what this committee could offer in terms of where this office would start.
Can you please go to the first slide so I can read it?
This one?
No, the first one, no, sorry, back, yeah,
Which one? Forward.
forward, sorry. My bad. No,
No.
my bad, dude.
Oh, this one.
Is attachment 1 or 2
But, so where does the language from this come from?
So the,
Is this your language, or did this language come from someone else? But this slide says explore the process of establishing, the next one says establish.
This is the memo language from the mayor for the items heard.
Right, so the intention of the memo was to explore the process of
And the
establishing.
action the council took is this action right here.
Okay,
This is the minutes that have been approved by council, so this is the action taken by.
I just wasn't sure the discrepancy with the language, because they sound different.
and you'll notice point 2, that language did change during the council discussion on November 12th. Point 2 from the original memo from the mayor
Yeah.
was worded slightly differently. It was expanded upon. And we're aware the discussion had, maybe a different tone, but the exact language that was directed to staff
Right.
is here. Yes.
But in rewatching the council meeting, the intent and the understanding of the council members there was clearly that it was exploring. I'm just from rewatching it, it was clear that council members did not think they were voting to establish. They were voting to look at going back to the staff with a whole list of things that were supposed to happen. And Vice Mayor Agrin said to that in that meeting, come back in 100 days with these things. That never happened. So the vote to then actually, the intent to then actually establish the office was never voted on, which is why Councilmember Franco, is my understanding, came back in June of 2025, again, asking for this process, and it was again voted, and the intent of that discussion was then voted to move forward and bring it back to the staff to explore. And it's always the understanding, at least from my perspective, I think, or perhaps others in this committee, that over the last few months, we've been waiting to have that input come to us and gather our feedback to then explore whether we feel we want to go forward with a separate department. And then that, advice or input would then be provided to the city council, and that would then be voted upon. It's my understanding, at least from the council member that I represent, and I have heard from others, that is the intention and the understanding, and that perhaps there is a discrepancy in what was placed in the minutes versus what actually happened on video and during the meeting. So
If I could devil advocate a little
Go
bit,
ahead.
at the end of the day, though, they all approved the meetings at the next, and if they were confused about the council direction, they could have said, that's not actually what we meant, and they didn't. So at this point, we have.
I understand, but they didn't know that they would have been confused because it's only now on the agenda for Tuesday's meeting showing up. As
But this number 1 was from the.
No, I understand, but
Sorry.
but if after the November meeting and then they thought staff was coming
They
back.
did think they were getting a report.
Staff never came back, so then it came up in June, and again, they voted to send it back to staff, so they wouldn't know that there was any confusion because they kept waiting for staff to come back.
It's not uncommon for staff to receive direction from council to come back in a period of time, and for staff to then need additional time. That's not uncommon.
No, I don't think it's the amount of time. I think it was
wanna be clear
the,
that it's not uncommon for staff to receive direction from council for 90 days, 120 days, what have you,
I
if you
understand.
will. And then staff obviously works on priorities and other information.
even if it was
Back.
2 years, I don't think it's the duration. At least from my council member, her perspective was, I thought we were getting more information and then voting again. And regardless of the amount of time. So I think that's where the discrepancy is of, is an office being created or not, which it doesn't matter, an office is being created.
And there was a list of items that that staff was asked to do an outreach before the establishment, and none of that has happened.
This is the council action. So this is what staff goes by. This is the council action that was approved of what council voted on.
So my concern is not the same. My concern is, I know that, Councilmember Martinez Franco mentioned in her comment, the DEI committee will work with the office. And when I'm reading the language here, it says work with the DEI committee to create an implementation timeline. So to me, that language reads that the DEI committee should be involved in the implementation of the office, not work with an office that gets created instantaneously or spontaneously. So my concern is that the prior DEI committee had for a year voiced concerns about DEI being baked into every layer of the city and bringing in a third party unbiased person to do an evaluation of the city so that we actually knew what the gaps were. In fact, Chair Aaron, the previous chair who had kind of spearheaded this, his concern was that we just hand this over to staff and then you have the city doing research on the city's own inequities. And so based on my understanding, I was at the meeting in November. We were supposed to be doing these things. As you see, it says work with the committee to recommend an organizational structure, staffing plan, and budget and resource allocation. That indicates to me that these things are supposed to happen I mean, I could be wrong, but I do have a few business degrees. Generally, like figure out the structure and the budgets and the staffing plan before you create the office. So to me, it seems like the order in which things are occurring is backwards, and that's where my concern is. My concern is that we hand this over and then it's out of our hands and we don't actually have an understanding or any input into the creation of the office. If the language indicates that we're supposed to be working with the office, not working with staff on the implementation plan for the office.
So what is the discussion here about? What are we doing?
Yeah. Right, and somebody's already been identified. Yeah, I mean, I have other comments just in general, but
So we're receiving a presentation to update us on this thing that is occurring. This is already occurring with or without us.
So the public feedback is an important one, right? I need all the public feedback is opposition also mean.
Yes.
So there's no opposition,
Your
I guess-
feedback tonight is to discuss what this office would be charged with doing.
Right.
You can, all the things that you're talking, again, you can, all the things you're talking about are still true and still accurate, if you will. What I shared last time when there were public comments, because there were comments regarding that, this is not gonna go back any time. Anytime that there's any kind of budgetary allocation to the council, it will need to go back. That's one that goes back. Is there a presentation that could go back to council updating them on what is happening? Absolutely. So the committee can make that discussion, have a recommendation tonight, if you guys would like to have a recommendation on what are some items that this office could focus on, that's certainly within your purview as well.
I have a question. What are the current DEI policies that already exist in the city of Irvine? And where are those policies and how are they implemented?
In 2021, the council adopted, what's called a DEI resolution, and it's on our diversity website. And, as this word for love, it's able to pull it up.
I can share that.
But I'm asking about like in city I understand this committee, but in city departments, in community services, in HR, do we have, we are, as is evidenced by Global Village and all of the representation we see here and in staff and in summer camps, we are an incredibly diverse city. Like it looks like there's been incredibly diverse hiring. We celebrate. Yes, I'm sure there is improvement, but my guess, and I apologize that I don't know, that there are DEI policies that each department has to implement. Do those exist or do they not exist and this is just happening by happenstance?
Besides the DEI resolution, I would say, just the broad interpretation of our One Irvine values, which are essentially the city's mission statement, humility, innovation, empathy, passion, and integrity. I wouldn't say that that is under the umbrella of DEI, but that's the closest thing I can think of to values that city staff currently are charged to follow.
And they seem to be doing a very good job. I just know my years of sitting on the Irvine committee, Youth and Families Advisory Committee, I see back very, very many years. And it was community service for families and children. And every conversation we had took into account those values, which is, do we have cultural awareness? Are we accommodating languages? I imagine in HR, they're doing the same. I know that now we have an Office of Health and Wellness. The point that I'm making is, and I'm very much in favor of equity and diversity and inclusion. But I see it as being successful and non-politicized when it is organically spread throughout an organization, as it seems to be doing, and doing very well in Irvine, as we're getting all kinds of awards, and the mayor is very proud of what he has been involved with, and the city council, you know, from past and present, that we have DEI inclusivity happening organically. And my concern, number one, is that it does get very politicized. Councilmember Franco is correct in that we are in a situation where it's getting very politicized. I don't want to politicize it anymore. I don't think it needs to be separated out into a separate office or department with separate staff. I believe this is happening, and it can happen at a much more successful level if the people that are involved in, let's say, senior services or disabled services or community services are very aware of the populations they serve. And I don't see sort of somebody in the city manager's office really understanding that and directing that. It seems that it should happen at those levels. And I'll give you an example that I talked to a council member about today. In senior services, they provide meals. And those meals may not be culturally appropriate, right? If there is, by culture or religion, somebody does not eat pork or dairy, they get a meal and they can't eat it. And part of that meal that they can't eat is the protein part of it. So not only are they not eating enough, but they're not eating the protein, okay? Who's gonna solve that problem? Not somebody from an office here, because they're looking down and how many staff is that gonna take, but it's the people in senior services, it's the people in community services that are aware of those issues. And what I was hoping and anticipating, us as a committee, that we would hear from those people. I mean, we've been charged, and I think there's a lot more we can do. We have 7 very passionate volunteers that want to work, that want to do. We have incredible staff. I would love to see senior services come to us and say, these are the gaps, these are the challenges. How can we help? Have senior services, have disabled services, community services, all of the organizations that exist, either that are run by the city or by nonprofits, to come to us, help us learn and educate the city council, educate our council members as to what those gaps are. We don't have to pay anybody to do that. We can find that out, and then any money or resources, instead of spending it on additional staff and separate departments, can then help that direct service and those organizations. So that's my reason for, aside from this process, and to me, a little bit of lack of transparency of how we are here today, given where we've been for the last year and what we thought we were doing. In addition to that, I just am opposed to politicizing and separating it out. I think it should be organic, and I think we're doing very well.
Yeah, to Wendy's point, I agree, yeah. I think I work in the senior industry as well, and actually, if I have a good point, when I think of diversity, I don't think of, like I said, criticizing. I think it's a little tone deaf to go kind of bit against the grain of what people are saying. I think myself included, I think of diversity. I don't want to think of it as the color of the skin. It's everybody. And I think the grassroots movement, the churches, our schools, our PTAs, they're doing a wonderful job. I think Irvine is a very diverse city. I don't feel like I'm not welcome here. I don't know anybody if I talk to the same way. I think there are people who need more help than most, like seniors or people with dementia. We don't know. I think it's better spent if we put more effort in reaching out to the grassroots, to the community, and not do bureaucracy move and just have one person sitting there with a phone and giving a ton of phone calls. But they're never gonna answer. They'll never answer everybody's calls. And on top of that, you make the other grassroots movement complacent. Now they just call an office. They don't have to do much work. There's an office of, yeah, I would just call them, they'll fix it. But it's not gonna happen that way. There's gonna be 1,000 phone requests, and it never just all cost. So once again, they will reach out to the community, which is well. Should be the start of it anyways, and I agree with that. I think we need to have more focus on. I mean, we need to have more, what we have in Irvine spot. I don't really need to do it fast. It's a little bit more.
I also believe that it should not be politicized for all beings. You're doing wonderful with the diversity and it's doing very well with all of our cultures living here. That said, there is, from what I understand, a range of all the different cities and how they have city staff to help, or they might have an outside firm, whatever it is. Every city is different. It seems like city council's direction is that this office is created and that there is an exploratory period to figure out how to staff this office and what kind of budget. From what I understand from listening to people, people are concerned about the budget and spending money that don't want to spend a lot of money. I think that within city staff, there are many possible people that have been living, working in the city and understand the city and could be in a way a liaison with this committee to help to work together for more guidance and also to get more communication about all of our diversity and to even do better. This is just an item that I think on the other side could be explored and discussed, since it is already with the city council's direction that this office is established. I've had the opportunity to go to the global village steering committee meetings. And there are just so many volunteers that are back behind that to create that, to make it happen. And with each table, there's a city liaison to help make the idea happen in the different areas of the global village. And I saw that they are city staff that's helping the volunteers make it happen for our entire community and our neighboring community. And so with that, that's what I've got in my mind. Thinking now is just to explore both sides.
All right, I'd like to add, so I took a lot of what the public comments were from last week and looked into a lot of the things that were said. We did have public comments for mostly opposition, but we did have someone who was gave some data. And so basically, like, the idea of diversity being organic, of course, that is true, and that is a huge benefit to our city. But there is something about data-driven knowledge. And even though we are diverse, it doesn't necessarily mean that we are inclusive or we are equitable. And that's where data really comes in to help encourage that for maybe who we don't think needs it. And like, especially one of the things that was mentioned last month was racecount.org. And it looks at every city's diversity and where they are thriving and where they need improvements. And our city does show that it actually is below average in how our minority groups feel. And so obviously there is some need of improvement based on that data. And the other thing too is, like, we are an advisory committee. So of course, like, we want to help and do all these things. And you're right, we are very passionate volunteers, but we don't have the authority to be doing the data ourselves or to be checking the nutrition services for the senior citizens.
If there is obviously the office is going to become a position because it's already been voted on, but having an office staff member to work with us on what we hear from the community to see those improvements implemented within the city of Irvine allocates someone in charge of the problems that we get from the community members, seeing that fixed, instead of every single time we need something looked at, the city council having to approve these budget allocations. And so this office is going to be created, it's already been voted on to be established. We can have our concerns with it. I think our concerns can help drive how it's created and how it works with us. But I think finding more like solutions and how we can work with it and have a big say in it is going to be the most important piece to this, so that we do have our own connection to this position or positions, whatever that may look like.
I would just like to ask staff a question about the state of California. What city of Carrollville is closest to Irvine that we can look to that's already up and running?
In terms of what specifically?
I can share what I looked at. I looked at Long Beach has an Office of Inclusive Excellence. I think it's titled slightly different. And actually UCI has one as well. And so I looked at both of those, just trying to collect some of what they're working on. Long Beach, their office provides training for all city staff members, cross-department coordinations to embed equity in everyday operations. That, of course, although we have this DEI resolution within our city staff, having that training from a coordinated DEI person for each department can really help them see maybe where they're missing parts too, that could be more equitable in their own department to help within the city. So Long Beach and UCI were the two that I looked at, yeah.
And Long Beach is,
Long Beach
is similar to Irvine.
No, demographics are not similar.
No.
Yeah.
Well, when you say demographic, I don't know that there's a city that is,
Yeah.
honestly, every city is gonna be different and unique and everything that's
The
great.
contrary thing with the data is it's not good, right?
Well, if I may finish and answer the question that maybe member Napper said. So staff has done a wide variety of research. Every city you're gonna find is gonna be unique to their particular demographics and needs. Every city focuses on something somewhat specific to them, but within an equity and diversity lens, if you will. Some cities have 40 staff members, some cities have 1 staff member, some cities have budgets allocated to it, some are ingrained in the fabric, some are in the city manager's office, the health department, the HR department. Those are the most frequent, if you will. And I would say we're one of the top 13 cities in California based on population. Most of those cities have Office of DEI, equity, inclusiveness, varying levels of being exemptions, if you will. So just some history. I know you asked about Baltimore earlier today. Rebecca looked into that. That has obviously been around since the 60s based on civil rights movement. It's been around for a very long time. I would say Baltimore, obviously the demographics and the size of the city is different than what Irvine is, but it's been long in the fabric of that particular organization for decades upon decades.
What about a city like Walnut Creek? Irvine a lot.
Yeah, some of the Bay Area cities with the racial demographics and income demographics are, I'd say, the closest in California to Irvine. If you like to say we're one of one.
Just kind of like chiming in on some of the points that have been made. Councilmember Tran made a super valuable point of like, yes, we know the city is diverse, we have all this culture, but what we don't know, and you brought this up as well, is like there are equity issues, we don't know what they are. And that is why a needs assessment has to happen. You also mentioned data. I don't think it was ever implied that this committee was supposed to do the data collection ourselves. And that's why we went through a very expensive process. We had an RFP to hire a third-party consultant to come in and do the needs assessment so that if an office was created, the office would be created specifically to tailor to the needs of this city. And that's the part that I think is getting sidestepped here, the collection of the data. Also, we talked about just a few moments ago, like a diversity person in all these different departments, but that's not what's being suggested. What's being suggested is that there will be an office and it'll have a single staff member. We don't know if that staff member even is a diversity, equity, and inclusion expert, or if they have any competency in that role at all. All we know is that the office will be created and that someone in the city will be moved into that position. And so I get really concerned that we're just gonna create an office and not do the research and then ask the city to do the research. That it to me is asking for problems and it doesn't necessarily identify what the issues in the city are. Everyone keeps talking about how diverse the city is, but that does not mean that things are inclusive or equitable. As a low-income single parent in this city, I can tell you that I've had many doors closed in my face and many doors, like because I do not have the financial capability to live and thrive in the city, there are many opportunities that I do not get to partake in. And my voice definitely is not included, right? So in terms of people who are like me, and that's where the equity analysis or needs analysis would be so pivotal.
I want to agree with you.
hold on.
I'm sorry.
So
Yeah.
if we go back to the original intention of today's meeting, which is to offer our suggestions of what we think is important or what we think needs to happen, and that would be my number one recommendation, is that an equity assessment would occur prior to the creation of the office so that we know what we need this person to even do before we hire them.
And that's where you mentioned data, you mentioned solutions, and I think sometimes what happens, and you see it a lot in nonprofit organization, you see it in the schools, somebody thinks that they have a solution and they throw money, they throw staff, and something gets created, but nothing gets done because nobody ever knew what the problem was. So you're absolutely right. We need data to know what is the problem we're solving. Irvine is one of one. We're incredibly unique. So we're not like Long Beach. Long Beach's DEI is a human rights committee. They are focusing on all kinds of other things, not even necessarily DEI. So other cities do things differently. We are Irvine. We do things differently. We have done things very well. I've been here for 25 years. I have seen what we've done well. I haven't, in the amount of time that I've been following city council, I have not seen public comment actually of people coming up and talking about any problems. I know problems exist, but it's not something that is on the minds of our citizens. We need to do a deep dive and we need to see where the inequities are, not just in race and culture, but we need the data before we throw money, before we develop an office, before we separate it out and politicize it. And we need to get that data from the people that are on the ground or third party, whatever it is. We need to identify problems before you throw solutions. And I haven't heard that there's a problem yet. I haven't heard data about a problem. I've heard that we have focused on DEI, that we have the values of DEI. I've seen only positive. I know that there's other things that are going on, but we don't know that. So it's not good business. It's not good common sense to just, because it's kind of a popular thing, and I am all in favor of it, of DEI as a theme. But it's not good business sense from a city council perspective in terms of spending money, in terms of organizational structure, to just throw something together without having the data, without knowing what it is you're even addressing. And so that's why I believe most of the city council members did want staff to explore that and come back with what are the problems and what are we addressing. We know there are so many other problems in our city. We know there's childcare issues. We know there's housing issues. I mean, that's what we hear about week after week after week. Electric bikes. I mean, there are so many issues that city council needs to focus on, and so much money that needs to be spent on other things. To put money at something where we don't even know what the problem is without the data seems unwise.
So problems arise all the time. I think that having something like this already created is going to help to resolve those as they come up. Just a quick question. There is already funding allocated for this, correct?
There is existing staff that will be utilized for this.
There is not COVID funding, that's
That's us, that's our money, for us to do something.
right.
So
Okay.
if they create an office, that money doesn't go to them.
Well, I wouldn't, I don't know that I can have that same assessment of that. The $200,000 was utilized for RFP or for a study for DEI. It could certainly be utilized for that office.
But didn't we request to get the money back didn't we request access to that money? So that we could do the
But then the
RFP?
RFP was not voted on.
So did we send the money back to the city council?
Yeah, it's still there, but it would go to the office. There's,
The money could be allocated towards starting the office, correct?
and towards a study as well.
But if, let's say, for example, we didn't want to allocate the money towards a study, but instead towards creating an office, that could happen.
Potentially.
Okay, that is what I think would be the best way, because I think ours, hiring a third party, they don't understand Irvine, like our own city departments understand Irvine. And so I would say that, most of our departments probably have a decent amount of data already. And so instead of suggesting to allocate this funding to an outside party doing, collecting data, I would suggest that we advise the council to allocate this funding towards creating this position so that our own city departments can send their data in and we can build from there. Because we're going to see that this is not going to be like a one-time data collection. Here's our problems, let's solve it. This is something that's supposed to withstand. And that's going to have lots of things coming to it and changing as it goes. That would be my recommendation.
My concern from a business standpoint is that you can't, like, bureaucracy is really hard to change. So if we create the office and then say, let's do the research on what we need this office to do, but you already created the office, which means you've already hired someone to do the job, which means they've already actually signed a contract that says what their duties are. How do we know, how does the city know what that person's responsibilities and duties and what the office does if there hasn't been any research prior? That's my concern. Bureaucracy is so hard to change. You create an office and then that's it. Like, that's the office. And while we will continue to collect data, it seems really silly to create an office without knowing what the office does.
And if we're taking an existing staff person, then that means that staff person is not doing what they were doing, which is serving the community in the ways that they were hired. And now we've taken them out of that. So now we've got to hire somebody else. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make
Well, the office
logic
is being
doesn't make
created.
sense.
I think we have to stay on topic of how to advise in that creation instead of,
Wait, I am.
yeah,
I'm talking about collecting the data, so. we
Yes,
know
you
how-
are.
Yeah.
Before it's established and before it's up and running and doing anything and identifying anybody there, we don't even know what that person is doing. That's what we are
can
supposed
you
to.
guys give us some information about the person that even?
How can there be a person, we don't even have a job description?
But the thing is, we don't have a job description, we don't have an office, we don't have a job description, so how do we?
There's no, I don't think there's a description needed on it. This is very common that an individual gets assigned to a project or assigned to duties, if you will. This happens often.
This committee strongly wanted a DEI expert to be the one doing it. And this doesn't sound anything like bringing in someone with the DEI expertise to actually.
That part of our advisement is bringing in someone that has DI expertise. If you
It
were
is,
here-
it was.
If you were here last month, there was a person who called in whose expertise was in DEI. So this is, people do have these backgrounds.
She doesn't come.
Right, I'm talking about whoever would staff the office.
Right, that's what I'm also talking about.
But we don't know who they are, so how do we know
She
they're?
says that they have.
Really quick, Chair, I would suggest that we also open it up for public comments as well before we.
As a quick reminder, the recommended action today is discuss the office and consider taking action, such as adopting a recommendation for city council consideration. So you're not mandated to take action tonight. I think you have a really good base of thoughts out there if you do want to put a recommendation together for the council.
Okay, just a quick question to go back in history prior to this committee being formed. How did staff get assigned to this committee? Like, how did that happen? Because this committee, I joined in January, I believe it was, so I wasn't here prior to that, and then we were first and we were somebody else. So the committee prior to us, the new ones being here, that was formed. Correct, it wasn't in existence for a while, right?
Yes.
Is it 3 years old?
this is my fourth year.
Fourth year.
And how it's the council,
2021, sorry.
yeah, the council orders the formation of the committee and staff has, it's directed by the city manager who staffs this team. And that has changed a couple times.
Okay, and then we have the three, thankfully, to help us with from city staff. So I mean, I think we need to discuss this further. We need to get more input from all of us to form a recommendation for city council of exactly. There seems to be a wide range of what the office is really, what it should be, what we'd like it to be, what it can be, what it could do. There's just so much. There's just, yeah. But I'm just thinking, well, this was created and we have staff now, so at the very least, a staff member come in and it would be an organic growth from there. Is that quite possible?
Quite possible, yeah.
Okay.
I'd say the sort of the difference between our role here and what a potential staff member in this office does is we're here for you. We're here to support your ideas. We can provide some insight, research, recommendations, but we don't provide our opinions here. It's we're here to implement and direct what you all advise us. If the council establishes that authority to another entity among staff, that person or that division would have the ability to do a little bit more.
The city manager who's ultimately responsible for dedication of resources of staff. So the city manager will make a determination of the staff member who could staff this office, much like the city manager made determinations for us on the staff here. It's based on experience. It's based on obviously any kind of applicable knowledge, if you will. So it happens all the time though, when there's individuals who are brought into the city who have existing experience, they expand upon their job description, their job roles, projects complete. So in terms of Vice Chair Bakota, there are many times that projects are completed with staff members who then free up their time to be able to move on to things. There are not projects that, not every single staff member here in the city works on projects that are forever, continuously. They're, myself included, there are projects that start, they conclude, and there are durations of it, and there's a lot of staff that also fill in that category as well.
There's some further discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We definitely need to hear public
We
comment.
have to
Yeah.
hear public comments. Okay, we will now consider public testimony. Those participating via Zoom may now raise their hand electronically to enter the speaker queue. Tracy, are there any members of the public who wish to speak on this item?
Thank you, Chair. This time we have 10 speakers in person and 2 on Zoom.
It's a personal matter that we offer being here.
Is it the charter scheme? No, I'm just kidding.
They had a softball game.
Okay, sure.
It's a wonderful city league, so.
Bye.
I'll call Mike Hepburn.
First of all, thank you for letting me speak. I've been changed what I was going to say 10 different times after listening to the committee's comments. Unfortunately, that slide isn't back up, but I've got it here. So from what I understand, the council's direction was to establish an office to work with this committee to create an implementation timeline. I've heard 2 different things tonight about what this office is supposed to be staffed with. I've heard that someone from the city is going to be put into the office, and we don't know who that is, allegedly. We don't know what their experience is. It could be somebody working in some other project who now is free and can move into this with absolutely no experience in DEI. Or I've heard it could be somebody from the outside. Neither of which can happen until you know what you're dealing with. All I'm hearing to vote yes on this proposal is to create a bureaucracy without knowing what that person or office is going to do. Bureaucracy does not solve issues with DEI, and it won't. Until this committee has an idea of how to implement
a solution to a problem that, from what I'm hearing, you all don't even know exists, or where it exists, or how to fix it, why are you appointing somebody who works for the city who has no DEI experience to solve a problem when you don't even know that it's there? That doesn't make sense. Basically, it sounds to me like if you create the office and staff it, you've solved the problem, and that's how it looks to the community. You can say you've done something, when in actuality, you're not doing the work that needs to be done in order to solve the problem. You can say, look what we did. We created this office. We staffed it. But that's all you're doing. And you're not doing anything productive or substantive. So I would urge you all to vote no on any resolution dealing with establishing this office or staffing it by somebody who has no experience, or you don't even know who it is. Thank you.
Karen?
We grew up right here in Irvine. I've seen firsthand what makes our city so special. It has always been one of the most diverse and welcoming communities in the country. As we saw in the presentation tonight, one of the most ethnically diverse communities. Our residents, come from more than 70 countries, speak dozens of languages, and contribute to a culture of respect and inclusion that is simply part of daily life. I've mentioned there was the Global Village Festival. Unfortunately, I couldn't go to it, but heard great reviews. And that's just another example of what makes Irvine so great. This is simply the Irvine way. It's not something that needs to be mandated. Furthermore, we have a citywide DEI resolution and ongoing efforts that reflects those values. Councilmember Franco, on May 30th, the memo acknowledged this. Creating an office of inclusive excellence would only duplicate what Irvine has already done so well. It would only add another layer of bureaucracy without adding value. Irvine's success in safety, education, and quality of life already proves that inclusion here isn't just a slogan or a program, it's simply the Irvine way of life. Let's celebrate and strengthen what works instead of building new offices to solve a problem that we don't even know if it exists.
Carol?
Thank you, everybody. Well, I had to change my speech because I was really floored by the presentation. We have a real transparency issue going on. What was voted on in council is not what's being discussed here, and it really bothers me as a public member to see that. I don't know why the memos aren't being put up. The memo by Ms. Betty Franco on June 3rd for the May 30th date says the November 12th, 2024 City Council approved direction of the staff to explore, not implement, explore, right? The process of establishing an office. That language has been completely removed now. And even more so, on Tuesday, they're bringing it back again because it actually hasn't been voted through. You guys are being given something to rubber stamp that has yet to be voted through at City Hall. It's a problem. It's a transparency problem. You should have put up all the memos, in my opinion, because what happens otherwise is what you had up on there were paragraphs that weren't saying actual, but the November 12th, I wrote it down. You were supposed to have a study, didn't see the study. You were supposed to have staff plans, where's the staff plans? Community organizations were supposed to be reached out, I didn't hear about that. Businesses were supposed to be reached out, didn't hear about that. Interfaith groups, community nonprofits, where was all that research? Mayor Adrian said there's 100 days, bring back to City Hall. That's what was asked. That never happened. Now it's acted like, we have staff we're gonna throw at it, we're just gonna create it. That is not what was voted on in City Hall. And so I'd be very careful, you all, because you need to vote no, because legally, it's different from what was voted on in City Hall. And our city has issues like this, where things end up in committees, where it's getting voted on and the words are not true to what was being voted on. So I really encourage you on no on that. So that's that part.
my second part back to November of 2024. In that meeting, we had Ms. Franco there, who used to be a committee, who then came and said, the reason why we need a DEI office is so that there can be a seat in government at the table for people like me. Entiendo, yo también quiero que sea sentado ahí, ¿me entendés? Yo también soy de otro país. Okay, and I'm really, really glad that we have a Latino on the council, and it happened organically. We didn't have a DEI to put her on the council, right? So what happens when we're starting to force something when we already have it? We start to change who we are in this city. And as you're seeing by the people who are coming in, we love who we are. Are we going to then start deciding with somebody who comes in or some office member who gets assigned things that change that very fabric that we adore so much? So there's real two issues here. One is there's a transparency issue. What you were presented is not the actual memos, and I really wish we put forth the memos because the language is different in different memos, which is not your guys' problem. It's a city hall problem. Kick it back to them. Vote no here tonight. Make them figure out what they meant, because they're asking you to vote on something that has different words at different times.
Thank you.
The smallest clarification, just to clarify for the members of the public, we're not voting yes or no on an office. We're not even discussing whether or not an office will exist. The office will exist, and we're not voting on it. Our job today is to make our recommendations of what we want to see happen in the implementation of the office. So I just want to make that clear so that you guys understand like what this committee does and what we're actually here to do today.
Can I have can you clarify that? You're saying the office exists?
So already willing, well,
But it has been
Chair,
voted
I
on
would
by the
engage
council.
that, yeah.
okay, I mean, we're not allowed to have a back and forth conversation. I just wanted to make.
But I just wanted to clarify what you're covering. I mean, it is possible, because I do believe there is some confusion at the city council level. So it is entirely possible that the city council may go back and say, that
But
wasn't.
that's not us.
No,
We're not voting yes or no.
No, I know, but to say that for sure this office is happening based on a vote, I mean, I know we're not getting into that, but it does need to be said that the city council ultimately will decide, and they could come back and say, this wasn't our understanding, because I think there is some confusion there. So city council ultimately will decide whether or not it has been decided or whether or not they're moving forward. But yes, you're right, we are not deciding that here.
Sandy?
Well, I want to be really clear, though, there is not action on the city council agenda regarding approval of an office.
Right.
We can all agree to disagree, if you will. The action that was taken last November was to implement an office.
Right.
There is nothing on the agenda coming up on Tuesday that is asking for council to take an action on this office. Thank you. I am baffled. I am an attorney. I have been a resident of the city for over 30 years. I don't understand what's going on. I don't understand how city council can say something and not say something, how you're being tasked with something that's impossible to figure out because you don't even know what you're supposed to be doing. As a resident, as a person, I am so unhappy with what is going on in this room, in city council, and I believe in DEI. So this isn't somebody who's antagonistic to your cause. This is antagonistic to the process. And I feel like this has been the lack of transparency, like that was said earlier. This has not been a transparent and a community-led process. This has been somehow shut down on votes. It's not that it's not a good idea, it's how it's being implemented is so bad. And as a public member who's never been to one of these advisory committee meetings, I feel like I have to go to each one now and see what's happening, because there's money that can be changed from one thing to another. How is that legal? How is that possible? I would be, if I was you, worried about that, because you can't just move money around like that. There's very distinct rules. So I implore you to get some clarity. I know you're trying to be very clear, this is what was voted on, but I don't see it like that at all. And I don't trust what's going on as a public member, I don't trust what's going on here. And I'm really, really disappointed. And like I said, this is coming from somebody who is on your side. So I'm really very sad, it's a sad day.
Beth Bell,
My name is Patel. Thank you for allowing me to speak my opinion. I'm here today not only as a resident of Irvine, but as an immigrant who came to this country with no special advantages. I worked hard for every opportunity. No shortcuts because of who I am or where I came from. Irvine is a place where that kind of fairness has always been possible. Irvine's success comes from equal treatment and open competition. That's why so many families, including mine, chose to build their lives here. Our city is already inclusive. People come here because they know they will be judged by their character and their contribution. The concern with creating a new office of inclusive excellence is that it may try to enforce rules or quotas that actually do the opposite, creating new forms of discrimination by valuing category over competence. The Supreme Court's Harvard ruling showed that even good intentions cannot excuse unequal treatment. And when we invent new labels or boxes to sort people into, we risk creating problems that didn't exist before. We can support inclusion, and we have been, through outreach, mentorship, and transparency without compromising merit or fairness. That's how Irvine stays strong, successful, and truly welcoming to everyone who works hard and contributes to our community.
David,
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Impressed by this committee and, by what I've heard. I'm really concerned about what I've heard. What Carol said it better than I. Apparently, there is confusion about what's going on in terms of what the city council approved. What I understand is that minutes were approved and they had a chance to review minutes, but that there was a misunderstanding about what was said and then it came back the next time. It's completely confusing. And it's a little concerning as a citizen. I'm very concerned about it. Regarding the position, I think we have a problem these days with centralization of power in government. We have too much concentration of power in, especially at the executive level of government. I'm concerned that a position like this might act at the local level. I don't really want that to happen. I like the idea of this committee being in charge of DEI and driving the others. There's probably not enough money for both the position and the studies that need to be done from what I've heard. And so the money that's there, I think, should be used to get the information, which is so critical. I have some concerns that this whole thing is being rushed. This position is being rushed through without the information. The implementation timeline on the slide that's up there includes a study. So, I mean, that's seems like the study is what's really needed. I think an independent person needs to be doing the study as opposed to somebody from the city, because that will give you the objectivity and really the buy-in from it. So the point is about a recommendation. Like I said, I trust this committee to do DEI well in the city, and this committee needs to be in charge of DEI for the city. So what I would say is that I hope that this committee will recommend that staff come back with what the council members asked for, and not to rush into staffing anything until the information that you need has been developed. And that the city manager and the council hold off on staffing for now, and certainly until this committee has had a chance to discuss it fully, and to develop the information. Also, maybe there's an opportunity or a way to ask the city council to provide clarification before moving forward, so that then after the clarification, this committee could actually discuss it with a clearer picture. And that's what I would suggest. Thank you very much.
Right. This was really interesting this evening. I mean, just the dichotomy of comments that are going on this evening. We have an office that exists. Where was that voted on? Who voted on that? Why couldn't I comment to my council member to say that I am not in favor of that? But you're telling me that this office exists? That is totally unacceptable. And by the way, I live in District 5. So I just want you to know that I will be calling my District 5 representative to tell her that I am not in favor of this office. There's no data that proves that we need it. And I feel like this is a political stunt, and I'm not sure why, because this is already an inclusive city. And January 2023 is the first time we hear of a request for a full-time DEI to Irvine. The voters were not there. The votes were not there at city council. So then this city decided to spend money to see if the position would be successful here in Irvine. The consulting firm gave their presentation to the city council in July of 2023. Nothing was done because it would not be successful here in Irvine, because 2021, we already had a DEI volunteer committee overseeing the city. How much did we spend on that research that could have been spent somewhere else? In March 2024, the city council voted it down 6-1. In May to September, the issue was brought up again. Why? It was voted down. Who is benefiting from a full-time employee? In 2024, Mayor Khan brings up the Office of Inclusive Excellence Department. Still, there is no need for this full-time employee. In May 2025, the issue was brought up to the table again by Councilwoman Franco. It is October. The people are telling you we don't need it. How does this help our city in any way? The fabric of this city is diversity. Councilwoman Franco's full-time job is running a diversity, equity, and inclusion program for companies. This to me seems like a financial incentive to her. How does this incentivize the people of Irvine? You had 9 people show up here and 1 caller telling you last month that we don't need this full-time employee. The only caller who was in favor of this admitted that her profession was in DPI. That's suspicious to me. How will this help lower prices at the grocery store? How will this help small businesses thrive successfully here in Irvine? How will this help with growing crime rates in Irvine? The only person this helps in my eyes is a council member. Please do not recommend an Office of Inclusive Excellence full-time employee.
Julie?
Good evening. My name is Julie Hyman. I've spoken to this committee before, and as I said before, I found the committee to be welcoming and empathetic, and I really appreciate the work that you all do. I previously spoke with you all as a resident of Irvine. I mostly grew up here, live here now, and I will speak in my personal capacity first. I want to say, just as a resident, I echo the concerns that were raised about transparency, and if it's not clear that the council realized what was in the minutes that they approved, it seems appropriate to go back and ensure that what's being done is consistent with what the council thought they were approving. And now I'm actually here in an organizational capacity. Last week, I left after 17 years at the Department of Justice to go work full-time for JCAN, which is the Jewish Community Action Network. It's a Jewish community organization that we stood up to fight the problem of anti-Semitism, which is growing these days. And I'm here to say that from that perspective, and I understand that the intentions are good, but to take the issue of DEI in the city away from a committee like this that operates with transparency, can take public comment and so forth, and y'all operate effectively already, and can conduct what studies and assess what needs there are, to put that in an office that doesn't operate under the Brown Act, doesn't have the same kinds of transparency requirements, makes me very nervous. You know, there are efforts that have been undertaken recently in other places that should have come with good intentions. The example in Santa Ana comes to mind, where it turned out that folks were saying, hey, let's do this, let's create this curriculum at a time when the Jews can't be there. And some really problematic content was created. There was a lawsuit about that, and it settled with restrictions on how it would be built going forward. But it's a serious concern to me, the move away from transparency. I think this committee is wonderful. You do great work, and I would be very much supportive of the committee looking further into what the needs are instead of just rushing ahead and establishing the executive office. Thank you so much.
Robin?
Hi, so I'm also a Irvine resident. I have a PhD in organizational development. I've been working for 30 years in government space. And I also have considerable experience in diversity training. I actually built a diversity program. Maybe my second job as an administrator was bringing diversity programming to a public institution. And so I am totally on board with a diversity initiative. And when I came here today, I plan to say, I'm so excited. And now I'm asking that I'm suggesting that we need to take some. Because as our Commissioner Craig Campbell has said, this is a project that needs to be data driven, and it so far is not. We don't know where the gaps exist. You don't know why the gaps exist. You don't know what options are available to close those gaps. You don't know what this position is going to focus on. Is it going to be training? Is it going to be equity management? Is it going to be community outreach? So there are so many different dimensions of diversity and equity building that to simply say, we've got a person that we can assign to that, that's really flippant. And it just dilutes the experience of those of us who have been in the trenches doing this work as a career. So, and you would never, ever say, we can take anybody, anyone who's been doing their job for 10 years and they can sure just step in and do yours. And so it's really insulting to say we can just take somebody who's currently doing the work, who may or may not have the competencies of diversity management and building and development. And so, I hope that as you go forward in this, that you take a step back and do a full needs analysis, organizational development analysis, staffing analysis, and budget analysis outside of the office of inclusive excellence. We do not want the person who is tasked with running the office to do their own needs analysis, because then they are going to build the office in terms of their tasks and the challenges and what needs to be done based on what their competencies are rather than what the actual needs of the organization are. And so my recommendation is that you go back out to RSP and you can break all of this work down in different ways. You can have somebody do the staffing analysis. You can have a contract for organization analysis. Yeah.
Thank you. The last in-person speaker is Councilmember Ms. Frankel.
just hearing everybody and really heartbroken for what I'm hearing because I was there. Everybody voted for my office, and I remember bringing this to the DI and we talked. I know that you were disappointed that we didn't have the RFP, but we celebrated that day that we had approved an office of excellence. So me as a witness, I know what I heard, I know what I see, and if you wanna go back to see the video of the diversity, equity, and inclusion celebrating that we have an office of excellence, if you can, you're more than welcome. With that said, for those who haven't experienced racism, discrimination, with me, I'm so glad. I am so happy, but as a Latina immigrant, I have experienced all that. This is what it prompted me to run as a city council member. And I urge you to look at the situation that our immigrant communities are living. They're living in fear. They're living with not knowing if our government is going to support it. We need to do something about protecting these communities, most vulnerable communities. I'm a low-income community as well. I'm a renter, and I know how hard it is to your point, to get any resources for ourselves. If you don't know the language, you don't know how to get. Tell me how many people from the 318,000 people that were diverse are here. That is not inclusive, my people. That is not inclusive.
So we're not the
That's 318,000 people. We need to be more inclusive. We need to bring more people to the table. We need to do a better job at reaching and just engaging our communities that have marginally and historically marginalized. So with that said, I don't know, it's important to have a paid person. This office already passed, and it's important to have a paid person that can help us do this data. The only reason we were gonna do our research firm, it was because there's a proposition 209, is a Prop 209 that it will fund affirmative action. That's the only reason that we were gonna search for a research firm, because that proposition, that affirmative action, could have, in potentially could have be a loss to the city. Not because there was a need. The need started, and we knew that there was a need when this committee was formed. Why do you think this committee is formed? Because there wasn't a need. There is a need. This committee is here. And I was here, and the only reason that this committee was formed is to form an office of DEI, so they can actually take a look at these problems. This paper, so I did a project with Chair Williams in CEDA. We were doing a paid staff work. She's amazing at doing the work, but she wasn't paid. And that is not fair. And that's what I'm talking about. That us as a low-income communities, we deserve that better opportunities. And we wanted to offer something good, but we couldn't dedicate our time. She has children, I have children. We have to work, she was studying. There is no way that as a community, they can do everything. We cannot ask everything of them. That is unfair. They are passionate, yes, but that's unfair. Somebody needs to get paid, and the community can advise that person in how to manage the DI prospect, and the committee should tell that person when they're not doing well, and the person that is hired needs to come and report to the committee every time. And if you see something that is wrong with that person, you need to raise a flag. That's what you're here for. Not to stop having some help with these wonderful people. Thank you so much.
On Zoom, we have Mona. Mona, you may.
Hi, I don't know why everybody laughed when you heard my name. This was quite circular in nature. I'm really surprised that we're spending that much time going around in circles, doing our own understanding of the English language. I think it's pretty clear to look at an office. You have a description for what the key functions are. It is actually a good idea to have the office. It's somebody that will take care of all the needs of all the committees. Because you talked about the fact that somebody that needs a meal is special, whatever, this will be the point person. Logically, you need somebody to be the point person to be able to help you out and help the community out. And when I keep on hearing about how people don't think that we need anything to do with establishing an Office of Inclusive Excellence, basically, DEI, you guys are going against yourselves. I don't understand. If this is, you have a description what the key functions are going to be. It's not somebody that's unknown. You could have a say on who comes in. So to start from this, like we don't know who it is, and it's all like secret. It's not. Just let's get something done for all the community. And it is good to have one person to be a point person, but to have a circular discussion for the last, I don't know how long I've been listening, it's exhausting. I don't know how you're not exhausted. They can do the outreach. You were tasked with doing something, do it. And then this whole money moving around, I don't know. But I'm just surprised. You are the DEI committee, and you sound like you're against DEI. I'm baffled. You do not represent everybody in the community. So you have no idea what you're missing. And it's not political. Am I done?
Yes.
Thank you.
Next we have DEY. Can I unmute your mic?
Thank you so much. To this conversation. It's pretty clear to me, everybody says we're confused what's going on. Not confused at all. This city council is using this committee and their good nature to be able to, can everybody hear me?
You're breaking up a bit.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, sorry about that. So I just want to reiterate, this committee, as I'm watching this tonight, you guys are being used by the city council. They want you to rubber stamp something that you have no idea what you're doing, just so they can say, the DEI committee has approved this. They're taking advantage of your good nature and what you're trying to do for the city so they can push an agenda through. It's absolutely clear to me that's what's going on. And when we think about Irvine and first of all, having Councilwoman Franco there is completely inappropriate in this setting. She has an agenda here. She's trying to influence the committee of a recommendation that she's going to hear on Tuesday. So that's completely inappropriate. When we look at Irvine, Irvine is one of the most ethnically diverse and successful communities in America. We talk about data. We've earned a perfect score from the Human Rights Campaign for 3 years straight. That didn't happen because of a committee. That happened because people here work hard, respect each other, and build opportunity through merit and accountability. So why spend No, no. You let Councilwoman Franco speak for what, 10 minutes? I think I'd like another 60 seconds, please.
Chair's discretion.
You can have 30 more seconds.
Okay, so let's be clear. We have real problems in the city. Traffic, housing, affordability, homelessness. Diversity is not a problem. Why would we've got universities, local and state governments moving away from DEI. Why would Irvine defy all logic, all trends to create a DEI department? Irvine has already proven diversity thrives without government micromanagement. We don't need another department. We don't need grifters like Councilwoman Franco. We need common sense. Thank you.
Joanne, you may unmute your mic.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. I'm Joanne Slobodian, and I thank you all for serving on this volunteer committee. I'm concerned that the lack of transparency surrounding this proposal could lead to the creation of an unauthorized Office of Inclusion. Protect yourselves and this committee's credibility. How can an office exist if the City Council never voted to create it? I apologize. I don't know your name, Lady in Red. Who is pressuring you to move it forward so quickly? What's the rush? Councilmember Betty Martinez Franco spoke before everyone tonight, and again a few minutes ago, saying we need a DEI department to ensure every group in Irvine feels represented. But as a Latino member of the City Council, she already serves on one of the most diverse councils in California. 3 Asians, 2 Caucasian, and 1 Latino council member, a makeup that mirrors Irvine's demographics, where roughly 44% of the residents are Asian, 35 are white, and 11% are Latino. That looks like inclusion to me. That diversity is something to celebrate. It proves Irvine already counts and includes every group. We don't need another bureaucracy to prove that's already true. Betty, you also need to rewatch a council meeting to hear the truth. You also need to understand you represent us too. We are part of the community. You need to listen to our needs too. And Jews have always been excluded, but since many of us are white, we don't get any of our needs met through offices like DAEI or inclusion. Let's remember what Mayor Larry Agron said on November 24th, 2024. Irvine is currently the most diverse and thoroughly integrated city in the United States of America. That's something to be proud of, and it raises a simple question. If we are ready, okay, just give me one more second. I'll just say what needs to be done is an independent gap analysis showing that what's not already been being done and what needs to be done, a pilot program with measurable results, a sunset review to ensure accountability and preserve the volunteer's voice. You are not proxies. You are the community's authentic voice. Vote no on the DEI Office of Inclusion. Thank you.
Aaron, you may unmute your mic. Aaron?
Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So my opinion is this committee has a unique responsibility. On one hand, you're fellow civilians like us. You're in touch with us, you listen to us, but you also provide oversight and insight to the city council. I will tell you, Betty Franco, what's unfair is that I was there at the council meeting, and what was voted on was to explore a DEI department, not to implement. I heard it with my own ears, just like you. I was there. And this committee has the ability to push back on city council to say, hey, there is confusion on what you actually implemented, and we want to straighten it out. Last little bit, I'm an Irvine resident, been here 20 years, District 5. Betty, I've tried to reach your office 10 times to discuss things with you, and you don't have time to do that, but you have time to walk to the DEI committee and to try to push that. You represent all of us. Answer your freaking phone call every once in a while and listen to your constituents. Now, in terms of the committee, as I mentioned, you kind of have the ability and the responsibility to push back on city council to say, hey, we didn't hear it that way. Read the resolution, understand it, and see that there's a lot of gray here, that there is a lack of transparency, and that it's time for us citizens to push back on city council. Thank you.
IR, you may unmute your mic.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
How many minutes do I have?
1 minute, 30 seconds.
Okay, 12, how many?
1 minute and 30 seconds.
Oh, okay. So I just want to say that irony is not lost, that some of the DEI commissioners are working against actually having any kind of a DI office implemented. And what's really disheartening is the tactic that is being used here tonight is that, is the it's a delay and kill tactic. You're continuously wanting perpetual research, which is unnecessary. The data already exists within the city, as well as there's gazillion data that exist. You could use Harvard research, you could use any other existing researches. You don't have to spend third party a lot of money and funds and resources that would otherwise be actually used wisely to establish an operational person to get actual changes made to improve people's life, to feel like they are included, that no one is left behind. And you know what's so disheartening? Another thing is this is a classic tactic that's been used in historical examples are there. Many people killed the initiative by doing a bureaucratic delay, and this is not acceptable. And the time that will be already wasted in order to do this extensive, expensive research are times that we will not get those residents who are left behind, who are not being helped, who are not reached out, and those we will not get back.
Thank you. Time is up. Joyce Carroll. You may unmute.
Hi, everyone. Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you. Well, good evening, committee members. My name is Joyce. I'm an Irvine resident and public sector DEI consultant, the suspicious one from last month, I guess. I want to begin by thanking you all for such a robust discussion on this agenda item. I hear the concerns about looking at data and understanding what the office lead would be doing. So I just want to offer a few thoughts in these two areas. So on the data piece, as committee member Carney Campbell mentioned with race counts, initial data already shows disparities in Irvine. In 2023, CNBC ranked Irvine as the 4th highest barrier to home ownership in the country. Class disparities exist. I would also point to the 2023 Orange County Hate Crime Report, which showed that City of Irvine received the 2nd highest number of reports in the county after Santa Ana. Now, I know data needs to be contextualized and looked at through a rigorous lens, but I think the initial data shows equity issues and these disparities do exist. If we want to delve further into data, I think the question is, what kind of data are we looking for? So that's one thing I'll leave you all to consider. Feel free to take it or leave it. On the office scope piece, I've worked with agencies throughout the state and country on like this exact thing. And I think this question of chicken or the egg of do we start with the assessment or do we start with the office is very understandable. So I just want to thank you all for engaging with that. Many times the assessment does lead to an office. Even for cities as wonderful as Irvine, these gaps usually appear once you start looking at the data with rigor. So understanding that this office is being created, I wanted to offer some ideas on what they typically do. One is assess equity and compile data to help departments be targeted in their efforts so they can use funds efficiently and achieve the impact we all want. The second is to offer.
Time is up. Thank you.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Amal, you may unmute your mic.
Oh, sorry.
Hello, good evening. First, I want to thank you guys for volunteering your time. And from my understanding, you're a committee for diversity, equity, and inclusion. I just want to ask, why are we wasting time? Let's just stop wasting time and not move backwards and just move forward. It seems like there's a lot of go around and go around, go around. Some people really always want to cry out that they're not being represented, yet they are represented more than others. And it's time to just face what needs to be faced. And I strongly support this office of inclusion for the city of Irvine because it aligns perfectly with our values as a community, built on innovation, collaboration, respect for everyone. Irvine's strength has always come from its diversity, its people and culture and perspectives that make us a world-class city. Enough of the wasting of time. This office would not only ensure that inclusion is embedded across every department and policy, but also serves as a resource for advancing equitable access to opportunity in the city programs, hiring and community and partnerships. I think there are some people sitting on that committee that are trying to sabotage the city. And I'm honestly going to call them out on it. Enough is enough. Stop wasting time. This is not about equity. This is also about excellence. Irvine is an excellent, inclusive city, and Irvine should continue to set the standard for others to follow. Enough is enough. Thank you.
And you have no more speakers.
Okay, wow. I don't even know what to do now. I would like to make one final comment. Just as a person, I don't appreciate being painted as someone who doesn't support an office. When I was on the committee that actually recommended that we create an office. I want that to be very clear because it seems like there's some confusion there. Second thing, I also don't appreciate people speaking about committee or council member Betty Martinez. Is it Franco Martinez or Martinez? Her character, having worked with her and having been in this process with her for multiple years, I think it's disingenuous and mean-spirited to say that she's doing this so that she can benefit. This all happened way before she was on the committee. That being said, I do think that it's obvious that there are many, many things that are unclear to a lot of people, and the things in which are not illuminated are different for everyone, it seems. In terms of the stop stalling comments, I will say, yes, please, let's stop stalling. I asked for research and data from the city that could have been provided from staff, not with a third party. We all asked for that last November and it was not provided to us. So again, I think it's disingenuous when people assume that they understand what's going on when they obviously don't. That being said, again, it doesn't seem to me like we have a consensus on what recommendations that we are making to the council on what we would like to see occur within this office, because we were bogged down with all of these kind of anti-office concerns or misaligned what's the word I'm looking for? The intention for why we were here today, it was not the same for everyone, I don't think. And so I guess I would just like to open it up to a final round of comments of if you have recommendations that you would like to be pushed forward to city council, please make them now. Because we will need to end the meeting at 7 no matter what, due to our bylaws.
And Chair, if there is a recommendation that can be voted on it.
Right. So, but it's not clear to me at this juncture if we have a unified recommendation. If we do, then we can vote on that and send a recommendation to council. But if we don't, then we obviously need to stay in the conversation, which I would hate to see happen again. This is what the committee, Betty and myself, have been dealing with for multiple years, is the kind of, spin our wheels and kind of get nothing accomplished. And so I do want to make sure that if we have the capacity to make a decision or a recommendation, that we do that.
I have a suggestion for a recommendation. It sounds like we have differing opinions of how we get started. I think we just need a position and they can collect data from departments. You want a research firm. But I think a recommendation that maybe we could all agree on is that as a committee, we have the opportunity to have a part in how those positions are filled, potentially in the interviewing and hiring process of who is chosen to fill that position. That would be something I would be very interested in being a part of, because we will be working very closely with this person or multiple people. So that would be a recommendation that I would like to put forward.
For clarification, we're not allowed to do that, right? Yeah, so we actually, and I also don't think it was clear to the members of the public that we actually don't have any authority whatsoever So we don't get to direct staff, we don't get to have a say in what staff does or the city does.
So, very what I'm feeling is this confusion, the non-council member of the verbiage, so maybe recommendation is what they thought of the actual been working on. Because it's this confusion, because, Leanna is very clear what is, happened. But the council member are not clear.
Right.
So maybe recommend what they read and what they're doing, how about that? What is each council member or person, what really want to.
I think that further stalls the actual forward progress of this office of inclusive excellence.
Nobody's stalling here. We're just trying to figure it out. When people say stall, it's a tactic.
He was here last month at the meeting, but the public comments have a very same and similar script actually. And so that is considered stalling. It took away time for us to continue discussion where we could have come up with some more recommendations. In my opinion, it was that.
So I think it's like, the getting through for the very first time in the city, it needs a lot more. It's not just a simple public works, application, it's a DEI office rebuilding that's gonna last forever. We don't know how long we're gonna have money for it, who this person is, we might be more than one staff, we don't know. So we're not stalling, we're basically trying to figure it out. That's what.
Yeah.
So I have a question about the cost of an online and email survey. And how much does that cost to survey? How much does it cost to hire a firm to conduct a survey?
There's varying levels of what that survey is. If it's a survey that can be done easily, then there's nothing minimal cost for hiring and research for that. We have to get a quote on what that is.
Okay, so
It also varies on how many responses we're anticipating that we get. There's so many different levels of what a survey could look like.
I'm sorry.
Oh, no, and also in RFP, I suggest that we discussed that at another meeting. Or although it's not over before, and we only meet once a month, and so it does seem like progress is very slow, but we meet once a month. We're volunteer, we're doing our best to try and incorporate free fundings, like for our city, what is the best way to move forward? And so, but I do think at the next meeting, a discussion again for RFP for data and possibly for survey. That would be a good starting point, along with the discussion of how this office how it's going to work with this committee. How are we all going to work together? What kind of specifications for the office that we recommend to city council? What are the duties, what we're hoping that this office of inclusion staff member or staff members would help the community. So things like this a lot.
Yeah, and I can't see us coming to any kind of a vote.
In 3 minutes?
Right, but I do know from having watched city council meetings in November and May and the continual discussion is they did, even though we don't have authority and all of that, they did put it back to staff. They did want staff and the committee to have input, to gather information prior to any establishment of this office or any hiring or any organizational structure. It was very obvious, very clear that conversation has been had multiple times. So they are not clear, and they wanted a presentation from staff. They wanted this committee to weigh in, and we have not. And today has not been that kind of a conversation. I don't think it needs to be an outside person. I think we have a lot of expertise in our city. We are doing DEI, and there are groups that are doing it within their departments, and let's hear what they're doing, what their challenges are with the different groups that are represented. Low income, seniors, disabled, multicultural. I mean, it's happening. And why shouldn't we as a DEI committee, we should have been doing this for the last year. We should have had people coming in and explaining to us what the challenges are. And then we would know whether or not this office is needed. I think that's what, and regardless of the vote or whatever, but that's what the city council wanted to hear from us. They want to hear from staff and from us. Is this something that is necessary? And they voted to get that information before establishing anything. That's what the discussion was. That's what the intent and the discussion was. Sorry.
Do you want to make a final kind of?
I'm new to the committee. I'm just trying to absorb. I mean, a lot. And we're still in all sorts of this. Need to do homework, a lot of homework.
Okay.
I think we don't.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of how to phrase, like, yeah, so, two things. My personal recommendation to the members of the committee is that you schedule a meeting with your council member, that you watch prior meetings of city council and the DEI committee to see kind of the path that, committee member Martinez Franco and myself were on in the conversations of creating an office, and to ask your council members what their concerns are, what they thought they were voting on, if this is something, if your council member like mine was confused, that might be something that you want to take up with them. Number two, I would suggest that we stay this conversation and continue conversation at the next meeting, having done our homework. So not coming in completely blindsided, coming in, having an understanding of what is actually occurring and what recommendations that we can make. And I'm leaving something out, but I can't remember because this was intense. Brain is fracking. Liliana, do I need to make a vote to like not make a recommendation? We'll just table the conversation.
I don't think you should table the conversation. Don't have a recommendation.
Okay,
Continuing the discussion.
Continuing. Oh,
the discussion.
I do remember what the last thing I was gonna say. If we want to have a conversation about an RFP, because it's unrelated to what was on the agenda today, you can make a recommendation to inject that as a conversation about an RFP. But it's something that we've discussed needs to occur prior to the next meeting, correct?
It needs to be voted on as well.
Right.
Yes, and make recommendation. The other item in terms of the next month, we're going to have a tour in lieu of the meeting. We also going to do other committee business in lieu of that, so that's another item that we discuss with you outside of this meeting to talk about potential agenda items and legal issues.
It might give us the time that we need to meet with our city council member, do our research.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any update then to give to the city council on Tuesday. I don't think.
Well, staff has.
What do they have other than this?
What's the first recommendation, if there's a recommendation to be had, if there's not.
We don't have a recommendation.
There's a recommendation, so there's no report to give, there's no update on implementation. Because they're.
City council just table it, so.
I think the city council also needs to take that agenda item.
Okay. I think it's a matter, I mean, it has been tabled for a year already.
It's on the agenda for Tuesday.
Right,
and
but
that's
it was for an update.
But we haven't been able to provide any kind of.
That's an update.
Right.
That is an
An
update.
update is that there's no update.
The
There's
update is-
there's no input from the, they're not ready to give any input.
Okay, so having completed the agenda, is there a motion to adjourn?
I move to adjourn.
Okay, Tracy, would you please conduct the roll call vote?
Chair Williams,
Yes.
Vice Chair Pagoda,
Yes.
Committee Member Tony Campbell,
Yes.
Committee Member Lee, Committee Member Napper,
Yes.
Committee Member Notajana,
Yes.
Committee Member Tran.
Yes.
7:00, thank you.
Going things.